Do you think someone in a wheelchair can't control everything around them? He didn't need to move. All it took was a phone call to decide what she could and couldn't do. Love became routine, and routine became prison. Now tell me, who is more trapped in this story, him or her? If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching from. Continuing. The morning in London awoke with its characteristic noise, that sound mixing distant horns, hurried voices, and the creak of automatic gates from luxury estates. In the Kensington district, where ancient trees tried to hide increasingly tall and modern mansions, one house in particular drew attention for its discreet elegance. Impeccable white walls, a hand-wrought black iron gate, a garden that seemed plucked from a decor magazine. This was where Marcus Alexander Montgomery lived, a name well known in the city's business circles, owner of a construction company that erected residential and commercial buildings throughout the county. Marcus was 42 years old, with distinguished graying temples, always in tailored suits and a disarming smile. He had built his empire alone, or at least that's what he liked to tell. Son of a middle-class family from the countryside, he arrived in the capital at 20, determined to prove his worth. And he did. Today his name was on construction signs, scattered across the city, in business magazines, at charity dinners where he circulated naturally among politicians and entrepreneurs. But inside that perfect house on that August morning, something was about to change. In the spacious main bedroom, decorated in neutral tones, a young woman was still asleep. She was 27, with brown hair falling loosely over the Egyptian linen pillow, a serene face contrasting with the soft shadows under her eyes. Her name was Helen Christine Davies, formerly just Helen, now Helen Montgomery, Marcus's wife of 3 years. Helen woke slowly, feeling the familiar weight of pregnancy. 8 months. So little time left. She ran her hand over her round belly and felt the baby move, that movement that still enchanted her after so many months. She smiled. It was a boy. He would be named Peter Alexander Montgomery. The name had been chosen long ago, during one of those late-night conversations when Marcus seemed more human, closer. She got up carefully, her swollen feet touching the soft carpet. The house was silent. Marcus had already left for the office, as always. She looked at the clock on the bedside table. 10:30 in the morning. She had slept more than usual. Lately she had been exhausted. The pregnancy weighed not only on her body but on something deeper that she couldn't name. She walked to the kitchen, spacious and modern, all white with marble details. The housekeeper, Mrs. Lewis, a 60-year-old woman who had worked there for 2 years, was preparing orange juice. "Good morning, Mrs. Helen. Did you sleep well?" Helen smiled, tired. "I did, Mrs. Lewis, but I wake up already tired." "It's the very end of your pregnancy, my dear. My grandson was born last month. My daughter-in-law went through the same. But it will pass soon, the baby will arrive soon, and everything will change." Helen poured herself some juice, feeling the cool liquid go down her throat. She sat at the kitchen table, something Marcus didn't like. He preferred her to have breakfast in the dining room, in the proper place. But Marcus wasn't there. "Mrs. Lewis, do you think I'm different?" The housekeeper stopped what she was doing and looked at her employer. There was affection in her gaze, but also caution. "Different how, dear?" "I don't know. Quieter. More confined." The words came out before Helen could filter them. Mrs. Lewis dried her hands on her apron and approached. "Pregnancy changes us, Mrs. Helen. We become more sensitive, more emotional. See, it's normal to feel this way." But it wasn't just that. Helen knew. In recent months something had changed. Marcus was more present, but in a suffocating way. He called several times a day to check on her. He asked for details about every doctor's appointment. He insisted she not go out alone. He said it was dangerous, that the city was violent, that a pregnant woman was vulnerable. And Helen, tired, vulnerable indeed, had begun to believe it. Her friends stopped calling. Or had she stopped answering? She couldn't remember for sure the last time she went out for lunch with the girls from the design course she took years ago. When was that? 4 months? 5? Marcus had said that day that he preferred her to stay home, that her blood pressure was unstable. She didn't even argue. And her sister, Camilla, her older sister, an executive at a multinational corporation, always so strong, so decisive. Camilla called less now, or did Helen answer less? Their conversations, once daily, had become weekly, then bi-weekly. On their last call 2 weeks ago, Camilla had asked if everything was all right. Helen had said yes, she was just tired, focused on the pregnancy. Camilla had insisted. Helen had changed the subject. The phone rang. It was Marcus. "Honey, how are you?" "I'm fine, Marcus. I just woke up." "So late?" "Helen, you need to have a routine. It's not good to sleep until this hour." His voice was soft, but there was something there. A censure disguised as care. "I'm tired. It's normal." "I know, honey. That's why I'm thinking, maybe it's better for you to rest more. Dr. Peterson said your pressure is fluctuating. You need to take care of yourself. For our son." She felt a tightness in her chest. The doctor had indeed mentioned her blood pressure, but nothing serious. He had only recommended less stress, light meals, gentle walks. But Marcus turned every medical word into a maximum alert. "I will take care of myself, Marcus." "Great. I'll ask Mrs. Lewis to prepare that tea the doctor recommended. And honey, don't go out today, all right? It's very hot. It won't be good for you." "I wasn't even going out." "Perfect. I love you. Anything. Call me." He hung up. Helen stared at the phone. Something was wrong, but she couldn't define what. It was as if she was inside a bubble that was getting smaller and tighter, but so slowly that she barely noticed. Mrs. Lewis brought the tea without Helen asking. Marcus had already called her then. Helen drank in silence. The day passed slowly. Helen tried to read but couldn't concentrate. She watched television, but nothing held her attention. She sat in the conservatory, that little corner of the house she loved, with plants and natural light streaming through the glass. But even there she felt strange, out of place. She thought about her life before Marcus. She worked at an advertising agency, created campaigns, had a busy but exciting routine. She met Marcus at a corporate event. He was there representing the construction company, she presenting a project. He approached her afterward, praised her work, asked for her number. They started dating. He was attentive, generous, impressive. He took her to the best restaurants, they traveled to paradisiacal beaches, he showered her with gifts. 6 months later, he proposed to her at a romantic dinner overlooking Hyde Park. She said yes without a second thought. After the wedding, he suggested she stop working. He said they didn't need her money, that he wanted her to be happy, stress-free. Helen resisted at first, but Marcus was persuasive. He argued with affection, with logic, with promises of a peaceful life. She eventually gave in. After all, she had always dreamed of having a family, of being a mother. Maybe it was time. But the peaceful life gradually turned into an empty life. Without work, without routine, she began to feel lost. Marcus filled this void with constant attention, but it was an attention that controlled. He always wanted to know where she was, who she was talking to, what she was doing. He said it was love, that he cared, that he loved her so much he couldn't bear the thought of anything bad happening to her. And she believed it. She wanted to believe it. The pregnancy came a year after the wedding. It was planned, desired by both. Helen imagined that a baby would bring new life to her routine, new purpose. And it did. But it also brought something else. Marcus became even more protective, obsessively protective. That night, when he came home from work, he carried a bouquet of white flowers and a wide smile, for the most beautiful woman in the world. Helen smiled, accepting the flowers. He kissed her on the forehead, then on her belly. "How's my son?" "Good. Moving a lot today." "Excellent sign. Helen, I need to talk to you about something." They sat in the living room. Marcus held her hands. "I spoke with Dr. Peterson today. He's worried." Helen's heart raced. "Worried about what?" "About your blood pressure and about the stress. He thinks you should be on absolute bed rest for the next few weeks, until the birth. But he didn't tell me that at the last appointment. I called him today, told him, "You've been tired, irritable." He got worried. He said it's better to prevent than to remedy. Helen felt something strange. The doctor would have told her directly, not Marcus. But the way he spoke, so serious, so concerned, made her doubt herself. Absolute bed rest means what? It means staying home, preferably in bed or on the sofa. No exertion, no stress, no worries. But Marcus, I already stay home all day. I know, honey, but I want you to be even more relaxed. I'm going to hire a nurse to stay with you during the day, and I'll ask Mrs. Lewis to prepare all meals and bring them to your room. You don't need to worry about anything. Something inside Helen screamed, but the voice was weak, muffled by exhaustion and confusion. There's no need for a nurse, Marcus. I'm fine. He squeezed her hands tighter. Helen, I'm not going to risk losing you or our son. I won't. If the doctor recommends rest, rest is what you'll have. I'll take care of everything. You just need to trust me. His eyes were moist. He seemed genuinely concerned. Helen felt guilty for questioning. All right. He smiled, relieved. Great, I'll take care of you, I promise. That night, Helen went to bed early. Marcus brought dinner to her in bed as he had promised. She ate little. He insisted she eat more, for the baby. She obeyed. Before sleeping, she picked up her phone to send a message to Camilla. But the phone was dead. Strange. She was sure she had left it charging. She plugged it in again and decided she would send the message the next day. But the next day, when she woke up, her phone wasn't on the bedside table. She searched the room. Nothing. She went downstairs and asked Mrs. Lewis. The housekeeper said she hadn't seen it. Marcus called in the middle of the morning. Honey, I took your phone. The battery was bad. I took it to get replaced. Don't worry, for any urgency, people can call the landline or my mobile. But Marcus, I need my phone. Honey, you're on bed rest. You don't need to be on your phone. It only brings stress. Social media, bad news, messages. It's not good. I'll give it back in a few days, I promise. Helen felt a chill down her spine, but she didn't have the strength to argue. She was too tired. Maybe he was right. Maybe the phone really did bring stress. The days began to blend together. Helen spent most of her time in her room. The nurse arrived in the morning, a middle-aged woman named Sophie, efficient and quiet. She took Helen's blood pressure, noted everything in a notebook, spoke little. Mrs. Lewis brought the meals. Marcus called several times a day. Helen tried to ask about her phone a few times, but Marcus always had an excuse. The repair shop was taking too long. They had to order a part. Better to wait until after the birth, not to stress. One afternoon, Helen asked to use the landline. She wanted to call Camilla, but the phone had no dial tone. Marcus later explained that it was having problems, that he would call the operator. The bedroom windows, which used to always be open, now remained closed. Marcus said it was because of the air conditioning, that they needed to keep the temperature stable for the baby. Helen began to feel suffocated, but at the same time there was a voice inside her saying she was overreacting, that Marcus just wanted to take care of her, that the baby would be born soon and everything would go back to normal. But what if it didn't? One night, already in mid-September, Helen woke up with a strange feeling. She looked around the dark room. Marcus slept beside her, breathing heavily. She got up slowly and walked to the door. She turned the doorknob. The door opened normally. Of course, it would open. Why wouldn't it? She went down the stairs, treading softly on the cold marble. She went to the kitchen, got a glass of water. The house was in absolute silence. She looked out the kitchen window and saw the city outside, the lights of buildings in the distance, cars passing on the avenue. So close and yet so far at the same time. She sat there in the darkness and allowed herself to feel what she had been avoiding for weeks. Fear. She was afraid. Not of Marcus physically hurting her. He had never laid a hand on her, never shouted. But there was something in the way he enveloped her, how he wove an invisible web of worries and cares around her that were in fact control. He was isolating her, subtly, gently, but isolating. And the worst part was that she had let him, she had believed him. She had given in step by step because each individual step seemed reasonable, seemed to come from a place of love. But love does not imprison. Love liberates. Helen returned to the bedroom. She lay down beside Marcus and stared at the ceiling in the dark. She needed help. But how could she ask for help when she couldn't even make a phone call, when she no longer had access to the outside world? She thought of Mrs. Lewis. Would she notice something wrong? Would she help? And Camilla, her sister, so strong, so determined. Camilla wouldn't let this happen. But Camilla didn't even know what was happening. Helen had been so good at pretending everything was fine in their last conversations. The baby moved inside her. Helen placed her hand on her belly and felt tears wet her pillow. She needed to be strong. For Peter, she needed to find a way out. But how to escape from a prison that didn't even have bars? How to escape when the door is open, but your mind has been convinced that you cannot pass through it? Across town, in a modern flat in Islington, Camilla was also awake. Sitting at her desk, even though it was almost midnight, she was finishing reports. But her mind was elsewhere. It was on Helen. It had been 3 weeks since she last spoke to her sister. 3 weeks, the longest absence since they were children. She had tried to call several times. Helen's mobile always went to voicemail. She had called the house. A housekeeper had answered, said Helen was resting, that she would call back. But she never did. Camilla knew. Her brother-in-law. Marcus had always been too attentive, in her opinion. The kind who seems perfect on the surface, but there's something underneath that doesn't quite fit. She never fully liked him, but Helen seemed happy. Or did she? She picked up the phone and dialed again. It rang several times. Finally, someone answered. It was Marcus. Hello? Marcus, it's Camilla. I need to speak to Helen. Camilla, it's late. She's sleeping. It's 11:30. Helen never sleeps at this hour. She's 8 months pregnant, Camilla. She's exhausted. Let me ask her to call you tomorrow. Marcus, I've been trying to reach my sister for 3 weeks. There was a pause. She's fine, Camilla. She's on bed rest, doctor's recommendation. I'm taking care of her. You don't need to worry. I want to talk to her. Now. Marcus's voice became colder. I'm not going to wake my wife because you're anxious, Camilla. She needs her rest. She'll call you tomorrow. He hung up. Camilla stared at the phone. Something was very wrong. She could feel it. That feeling sisters have. That invisible connection that warns when something isn't right. She grabbed her car keys. She was going there. Now. But when she arrived in front of the house 20 minutes later, all the gates were closed. She rang the doorbell. No one answered. She rang again. Nothing. She shouted Helen's name. Silence. She stood there on the pavement, looking at that perfect house with its white walls and impeccable garden, and she knew with absolute certainty that her sister needed her. She got back into the car but didn't leave. She stayed there, parked on the street, watching, waiting. She needed a plan. She needed to get into that house. She needed to see Helen, and she wouldn't rest until she did. Because something inside her screamed that time was running out. The days that followed were a strange mixture of routine and escalating tension. Helen woke late, had the breakfast Mrs. Lewis brought on a tray, received a visit from the nurse Sophie, and spent the day in the bedroom or the small adjoining sitting room. Always with the windows closed, always with the television on low volume, always with that feeling of floating somewhere between reality and a bad dream. Marcus arrived home from work at 7 in the evening punctually. He brought news of the day, told stories about meetings and contracts, and asked about the baby. They dined together in the bedroom. He insisted she eat more. She obeyed. Afterward, he would place his hand on her belly, talk to Peter, and say he would be the best father in the world. And in those moments, Helen almost believed that everything was fine, that this was just a phase, that after the birth, everything would go back to normal. But at night, when Marcus slept and she lay awake listening to the silence of the house, the truth returned like a cold wave. She was trapped, not by chains or locks, but by something more subtle and equally effective. She was trapped by her own mind, which had been convinced that leaving would be dangerous, irresponsible, selfish. She was trapped by the fear Marcus had planted in her heart, with such skill that she hadn't even noticed when the roots began to grow. One morning, almost 3 weeks after that night she went down to the kitchen, Helen woke up with a backache. It wasn't severe, but it was bothersome. She called Marcus, who was already dressed, to leave. "Is it hurting much?" "It's bearable, but it's uncomfortable." He frowned, worried. "I'll call Dr. Peterson. Maybe it's better if you stay in bed all day. No getting up, not even to go to the bathroom. I'll ask Sophie to bring a bedpan." "Marcus, there's no need for that. It's just a backache." "Helen, you're 8.5 months pregnant. Anything could be a sign of premature labor. I won't risk it." His voice brooked no argument. Helen felt that mix of gratitude and discomfort. He cared so much. Or did he? During that day, Helen did not leave her bed. Sophie stayed there the whole time, monitoring, taking notes, barely speaking. Mrs. Lewis brought the meals, but she too was quieter than usual. Helen tried to talk, but the housekeeper just smiled politely and left quickly. Did she know? Did she realize there was something wrong here? Helen wanted to ask for help, but she didn't know how. What if she was mistaken? What if Marcus really was just taking care of her? What if she was being ungrateful, paranoid, unfair to a man who loved her so much? In the afternoon, she heard voices coming from downstairs. It was Marcus. But it wasn't his usual time to be home. She got up slowly, ignoring the order to stay in bed, and went to the bedroom door. She opened a crack and listened. "No, Mother. It's not a good time for visitors. Helen is on absolute bed rest." The doctor was very clear. It was Marcus's voice, tense, irritated. "But Marcus, I'm your mother. I want to see how she is. I haven't seen her in months." Helen recognized the voice. It was Mrs. Eleanor Montgomery, Marcus's mother, a 65-year-old lady with white hair always elegantly pinned in a bun, sober, clothes, polite manners. In the first years of their marriage, Eleanor visited the house frequently, but lately the visits had ceased. Marcus always said his mother was busy or traveling, or that they would see each other another time. "Mother, don't insist. When the time is right, I'll let you know. Now I need you to leave." The tone was cold, cutting. Helen had never heard Marcus speak to his mother like that. She was shocked. "You've changed, Marcus. I don't know what happened to you, but you've changed." There was a heavy silence, then the front door closed. Helen quickly returned to bed, pretending she hadn't heard anything. Minutes later, Marcus entered the room. His face was red, his hands clenched into fists. But when he saw Helen, he forced a smile. "How are you, honey?" "Better. The pain has passed." "Good. My mother came here wanting to visit, but I sent her away. You need peace, not visitors." "But, Marcus, she's your mother." "I'd like to see her." His eyes hardened for a second, just a second, but Helen saw it. "Helen, you're on bed rest. Visitors bring agitation, conversations, effort. It's not good. After Peter is born, we'll welcome whoever you want. For now, I need you to trust me." She nodded, but something inside her began to crack. A small fissure in the wall of conviction Marcus had built. That night, after Marcus fell asleep, Helen got up again. She went to the small desk in the corner of the room, opened the drawer slowly so as not to make a sound, and took out a notebook and a pen. She returned to bed and, under the dim light of the bedside lamp, began to write. She didn't know who she was writing for. Maybe for herself. Maybe for someone who would find it one day, but she needed to get out what she felt. "I am writing this because I am afraid of forgetting who I am. My name is Helen Christine Davies Montgomery. I am 27 years old. I am 8.5 months pregnant, and I am trapped. There are no chains, there are no locks. My bedroom door opens, but I cannot leave. My husband says he loves me, that he protects me, that everything he does is for my good and for the good of our son. And I want to believe it, but something inside me screams that this is not love. This is control." He took my phone, said the battery was bad. "It's been 4 weeks. I don't talk to my sister. I don't talk to anyone besides him, the nurse and the housekeeper. The windows are always closed. He says it's for the air conditioning, but I feel it's so I don't scream. He never hit me, never shouted. He is always gentle, always attentive. But there's something in his eyes when I question. Something cold, something that makes me afraid to insist. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to get out. I'm afraid I'm wrong. I'm afraid I'm right. If anyone reads this one day, know that I tried to resist, but it's hard to resist when the prison is inside your own head. She hid the notebook under the mattress and turned off the light. She lay down and cried in silence, her hands on her belly, feeling the baby move. Across town, Camilla had not given up. Every day, for 3 weeks, she had gone to the Kensington house, sometimes in the morning, sometimes at night. She rang the doorbell. No one answered. She called the house phone. No one answered. She called Marcus. He always said the same thing. Helen is fine, she's resting, she'll call soon. But Helen never called. Camilla was a practical, logical woman, accustomed to solving complex problems at work. But this was different. It wasn't a problem that could be solved with spreadsheets and meetings. It was her sister, and she couldn't reach her. One Friday night, Camilla was in her flat, drinking wine and trying to calm down, when her phone rang. It was an unknown number. Hello? Mrs. Camilla? My name is Lewis. I work at Mr. Montgomery's house. Camilla's heart raced. Mrs. Lewis? Yes, I need to speak to you. It's about your sister. What happened? Is she all right? There was a pause. Camilla heard the woman's heavy breathing on the other end. I don't know anymore. I'm scared. Scared of what? Scared of what's happening in that house. Camilla sat up, her whole body on alert. Tell me everything. You need to understand, I'm just a housekeeper. I need the job, but I can't stay silent anymore. And Mrs. Lewis told her everything. She told her how Helen had become increasingly isolated in recent months, how Marcus controlled everything, every call, every visit, every movement, how Helen's phone had disappeared, how the bedroom windows were always closed, how Mrs. Lewis herself had been instructed not to talk much to Helen, just to bring food and leave, how Marcus had threatened to fire her if she told anyone anything. But today he said something that frightened me. He said that after the baby is born, he's going to hire someone to take care of the child because Helen will need treatment. Treatment for what? I asked. He said she's becoming unstable, that the pregnancy has affected her mind, that she'll need psychiatric help. Camilla felt her blood run cold. That's crazy. My sister is perfectly sane. I know. I live with her. She's not crazy. She's scared. She's trapped. And I don't know what he's going to do after the baby is born. Where are you now? I'm at my house. Today was my day off. I'll be back on Monday. But I'm afraid to go back, that he'll find out I called you. You did the right thing, Mrs. Lewis. I'm going to get my sister out of there, but I need your help. They talked for almost an hour, devising a plan. On Monday, when Marcus left for work, Mrs. Lewis would leave the kitchen door unlocked. Camilla would enter and take Helen away. It was risky, but it was the only chance. The weekend was torture for Camilla. She couldn't think of anything else. She couldn't eat, sleep, or work. Her mind was on Helen, imagining what she was going through at that moment. For Helen, the weekend was equally difficult. Marcus was home all the time, monitoring every move. She could barely go to the bathroom alone without him asking if everything was all right. On Sunday night, she felt mild contractions. Nothing serious, just those practice contractions the doctor had explained. But when she told Marcus, he panicked. I'm taking you to the hospital, now. Marcus, they're just Braxton Hicks contractions. It's normal. I won't risk it. Let's go. He practically carried her to the car. At St. Jude's Hospital, the on-call doctor examined Helen and confirmed that it was just practice, that the baby was fine and that she could go home. But Marcus insisted she stay for observation. The doctor, a Kiwansism, young and patient woman, explained that there was no need, but Marcus wouldn't accept it. Dr. Peterson told me to be cautious. She has high blood pressure. She needs to be admitted. The doctor looked at Helen. Your blood pressure is normal now. Do you want to be admitted? Helen looked at Marcus, then at the doctor. For the first time in weeks, she was out of that house. There were other people there. There was a chance. I'd like to speak with the doctor, alone. Marcus's face hardened. Why, I'm your husband. There's nothing you can't say in front of me. The doctor noticed something. Sir, it's protocol. I need to examine the patient alone. You can wait outside. Marcus hesitated. Then, forcing a smile, he nodded and left. As soon as the door closed, Helen began to cry. The doctor approached, holding her hand. What's happening? And Helen told her. She told her everything. The isolation, the control, the fear. The words poured out in a torrent, as if they had been repressed for so long that they now exploded. The doctor listened to everything, her face grave. Then she said softly, "You are suffering psychological abuse. This is serious. I can call social services. We can alert the police." Helen felt panic. "No, I don't want the police. He didn't hit me. He didn't do anything illegal. He just convinced me that I needed to stay locked up. But technically I could leave at any time." "But you didn't leave, because he created a psychological prison." Helen was confused, exhausted, scared. "If I report him, he'll say I'm crazy, that the pregnancy affected my mind, and they'll believe him. He's rich, influential. I'm just a pregnant, desperate woman." The doctor sighed. "So what do you want to do?" "I want to leave, not to his house, to another place, but I don't know how." The doctor thought for a moment. "I'll tell your husband that you need to stay for observation until tomorrow. That gives you time to think, to make calls. Is there anyone who can help?" Helen thought of Camilla. "My sister. But I don't have a phone." He took it. The doctor took out her own mobile. "Use mine, quickly, before he gets suspicious." Helen dialed Camilla's number, her hands trembling. It rang once, twice, 3 times. "Please answer. Please answer." "Hello? Camilla, it's me." On the other end, Camilla dropped the glass she was holding. "Helen, my God, Helen. I need help. I'm at St. Jude's Hospital. Marcus is outside. I need to get out of here and not go back to that house. I'm coming. I'm leaving now. Don't move, don't talk to him, don't do anything. I'll get you out of there." Camilla hung up and ran. She grabbed her bag, her keys, ran down the stairs because the lift would take too long. She got in her car and drove as if her life depended on it. Because Helen's life depended on it. She arrived at the hospital in 20 minutes when it would normally take 40. She ran to reception, asked for Helen. They said she was on the 3rd floor maternity ward. She went up the stairs, her heart beating so hard it hurt. She found the ward, looked for the room, and she saw Marcus. He was in the corridor on the phone, his back to her. Camilla entered the room. Helen was sitting on the bed, her eyes red from crying. When she saw her sister, she broke down. Camilla ran and hugged her, feeling her body tremble. "It's all right, I'm here. I'll get you out of here." They spoke quickly in whispers. The doctor entered and explained that legally she couldn't prevent Helen from leaving, but that it would be better if she left with someone, not her husband. At that moment, Marcus entered the room. He saw Camilla and his face hardened. "What are you doing here?" "I came to pick up my sister." "She's not going anywhere. She's coming home with me." Camilla placed herself between Marcus and Helen. "She's not. She's coming with me." "You have no right to interfere in my marriage. And you have no right to imprison my sister." They stood face to face, the air heavy with tension. The doctor intervened. "Sirs, please, the decision is the patient's. Mrs. Helen, do you want to go with your husband or your sister?" Everyone looked at Helen. She was pale, trembling, but there was something new in her eyes. Determination. "I'm going with my sister." Marcus took a step forward, his voice low but laden with something dangerous. "Helen, you're making a mistake. You're confused. The pregnancy is affecting your judgment. You need to come home, to the safe place I built for you." "That place isn't safe, Marcus. It's a prison. I protect you. I take care of you. I love you." "No. You control me. You isolate me. You make me doubt myself. That's not love. You'll regret this. You'll realize you were wrong, and when you do, it might be too late." The threat was veiled but clear. Camilla squeezed Helen's hand. "We're leaving." They walked past Marcus. He didn't try to physically stop them, but his eyes followed Helen with a terrifying intensity. In the lift going down, Helen started to cry again, but they were tears of relief. Camilla hugged her and whispered, "You were very brave." "I'm scared, Camilla, I'm very scared." "I know, but now you're not alone anymore." When they left the hospital into the London night, Helen took a deep breath. The city air, which she once found polluted and suffocating, now seemed the sweetest thing in the world. It was the air of freedom. But she knew that this was just the beginning. Marcus wouldn't give up easily. And there was a baby to protect. The fight was just beginning. That night in Camilla's flat, Helen slept for the first time in months without fear. But she woke in the middle of the night with a strong pain. Contractions, real ones this time. "Camilla, the baby's coming." And as they rushed back to the hospital, Helen felt a mix of fear and hope. Her son would be born free, and she would do everything to ensure he remained that way. The hospital was silent that Monday morning. Helen was taken directly to the delivery room, her contractions becoming more frequent and intense. Camilla held her hand the entire time, whispering words of encouragement, wiping sweat from her sister's forehead, being the anchor Helen needed. Peter was born at 5:37 in the morning, weighing 3 kilos and 200 grams, crying loudly and healthily. When they placed the baby in Helen's arms, she forgot for a moment everything she had been through. She looked at that tiny, red, crumpled face, at his closed eyes, at his minuscule hands, and felt a love so immense it hurt her chest. "He's perfect," she whispered. Camilla was crying, leaning against the delivery room wall, witnessing that miracle. Her nephew, her family. The nurse asked if they wanted to inform the father. Helen hesitated. Legally, Marcus had the right to know his son had been born, but she was afraid of what he would do, what he would say, how he would try to regain control. "He needs to know," Camilla said softly, "but you don't have to be alone with him. I'll stay by your side the entire time." Helen nodded. The nurse made the call. 20 minutes later, Marcus arrived. He entered the room where Helen was with the baby, and for a moment his face transformed. There was genuine emotion there, tears in his eyes, his hands trembling. As he approached, "May I hold him?" Helen looked at Camilla, then nodded. She carefully passed the baby to Marcus. He took his son in his arms, and something within him seemed to break. He cried. He truly cried, without trying to hide it. "My son. My Peter." He stood there, holding the baby, murmuring soft words that only he and the child could hear. Helen watched, her heart aching, because in that moment she saw something that almost made her doubt everything. She saw a man who loved, a father who loved his son, a flawed and complicated human being, not a monster. But love does not justify control, and she needed to remember that. After a few minutes, Marcus returned the baby to Helen. He sat in the chair beside the bed, his face still wet with tears. "Helen, I know I messed everything up. I know you're angry with me. But look at him. He's our son, our family. We can't let this end like this." "Marcus, you locked me up. You isolated me. You made me believe I was crazy for wanting to talk to my own sister." He lowered his head. "I was afraid. Afraid of losing you. Afraid something would happen to you or the baby. My father died when I was a child. My mother closed herself off from the world. I grew up alone. When I met you, I thought I finally had a real family, and the fear of losing that consumed me. It turned me into someone I don't recognize." Camilla, who was listening, standing in the corner of the room, crossed her arms. "Fear doesn't justify what you did, Marcus. You manipulated my sister. You controlled every aspect of her life. I know, and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to fix it. Helen, I'm not asking to get back together, not now. I know you need space, but I ask that you let me be Peter's father, that you let me be a part of his life." Helen looked at the baby in her arms. As much as everything within her screamed to keep Marcus away, she knew that this child had the right to know his father. And perhaps, just perhaps, Marcus could change. People did change, didn't they? "We can talk about it, but for now, I need time. I need to recover. I need to learn to trust myself again." Marcus nodded, stood up, kissed Helen's forehead carefully and left the room. Camilla approached the bed. "Do you think he was being sincere?" Helen sighed. "I don't know, Mila. I don't know what to think anymore. Part of me wants to believe he was just scared, that he acted wrongly but with good intentions. Another part tells me never to trust him again. Trust yourself. That's all that matters now." The following days were a mix of joy with the baby and anxiety about the future. Helen stayed in the hospital for 3 days recovering from childbirth. Marcus appeared every day, always polite, always respecting the boundaries Helen set. He brought flowers, gifts for the baby, stayed for half an hour, and left. He seemed genuinely to be trying, but there was something in his eyes, something Helen couldn't decipher. Was it genuine remorse, or was it just a new strategy? On the 3rd day, as Helen was about to be discharged and go to Camilla's flat, she received an unexpected visit. Mrs. Eleanor Montgomery, Marcus's mother, entered the room holding a bouquet of white flowers and a wrapped gift. "Helen, dear, may I come in?" Helen was surprised but nodded yes. Mrs. Eleanor approached, placed the flowers on the table, and looked at the crib where Peter slept. "He's beautiful, just like Marcus when he was born." She sat in the chair beside the bed, her hands clasped in her lap, posture erect but her eyes full of contained emotion. "I know what happened. My son told me. Not everything, I'm sure, but enough for me to understand that something very wrong occurred in that house." Helen didn't know what to say. Mrs. Eleanor continued. "I failed as a mother, Helen, after my husband passed away. I closed myself off. I raised Marcus with rigidity, with distance. I thought I was being strong, but I was just being cold. He grew up without knowing how to express feelings healthily. He grew up thinking that love is possession, that caring is controlling, and I let that happen." Silent tears streamed down the lady's face. Helen felt a pang of compassion. "Mrs. Eleanor, I don't blame you for what happened, but I blame myself, and I came here to tell you that I'm on your side, not my son's side, yours. You are the victim here, and if there's anything at all I can do to help, I will be there, as Peter's grandmother, as your friend, as the mother I failed to be for Marcus." Helen was surprised. "Thank you, Mrs. Eleanor. That means a lot to me." The older lady wiped her tears with a cloth handkerchief. "May I hold my grandson?" Helen smiled. "Of course." Mrs. Eleanor stood up, went to the crib, and carefully picked up Peter. She looked at the baby with a tenderness Helen had never seen, and she whispered so low it was almost inaudible, "I will not fail you, I promise." When she left the hospital, Helen went to Camilla's flat in Islington. It was a modern, cozy place, full of natural light. Camilla had prepared one of the rooms for Helen and Peter, with a crib, diapers, baby clothes, everything a baby needed. In the first few days, Helen barely slept, not just because Peter woke every 3 hours to feed, but because fear kept her alert. Fear that Marcus would show up, fear that he would try to take her back, fear that everything would start over. But Marcus didn't show up unannounced. He called first. He asked if he could visit. He respected it when Helen said it wasn't a good day. When he visited, he stayed for a short time, held his son carefully, spoke politely with Camilla, and left. He seemed like a different man. Helen began therapy. Camilla insisted and she accepted. Twice a week she went to the office of the psychologist, Dr. Marianne, a 40-year-old woman with curly hair and a welcoming smile. In the sessions, Helen gradually unraveled what had happened. She began to understand the mechanisms of manipulation. She learned to identify when her fear was rational and when it was a residue of trauma. And the baby grew. Peter was a calm baby. He slept well, fed well, smiled a lot. Helen fell more in love with him every day. Being a mother was difficult, exhausting, but it was also the most rewarding thing she had ever done. A month after the birth, Marcus asked to have a serious conversation, not about getting back together, but about Peter's custody. Helen accepted, but asked that it be at a lawyer's office, on neutral ground. Camilla went along. They sat in an elegant meeting room, all 4 of them. Helen, Marcus, Camilla, and Helen's lawyer, Mr. Frederick, a serious 50-year-old man specializing in family law. Marcus began, I want to be present in my son's life. I don't want to dispute custody. I know you are the mother. I know he needs to be with you now. But I want to visit him regularly. I want to be there for important dates. I want to help financially. I want to be a father." Helen took a deep breath. "I won't stop you from seeing Peter, Marcus, but I need guarantees. I need to know that you won't try to control me through him, that you won't use our son as a tool for manipulation. I would never do that. You said you would never hurt me, and you did." Marcus lowered his head. "Touché. What do you need me to do to prove I've changed?" "Therapy. I want you to go to therapy, to work on your issues, to learn to deal with your emotions healthily." He hesitated, but nodded. "All right, I'll do it. And I want everything recorded. Visiting hours, child support, everything legally documented. I don't want to live improvisationally anymore where you decide the rules." Helen's lawyer began to draft the terms. Marcus agreed to everything. He would pay generous child support. He would visit Peter twice a week, always in the presence of Helen or Camilla, until Helen felt comfortable enough to leave him alone with the baby. He would participate in medical appointments if Helen allowed, and he would attend therapy with monthly proof. When they left the office, Helen felt she had taken an important step. She was regaining control of her own life. But that night, when she was alone in the room with Peter sleeping in the crib, beside her phone rang. It was an unknown number. She answered. "Hello? Helen, it's me, Lewis. Mrs. Lewis, how are you?" "I'm fine, dear, but I called to tell you something. Mr. Montgomery fired me, said he didn't need me anymore. And as I was leaving the house, I saw he was hiring someone else, a younger woman, and I overheard him talking to her, saying he needed someone trustworthy, someone to help him solve a problem." Helen felt a chill down her spine. "What kind of problem?" "He didn't say specifically, but the way he spoke, Helen, it scared me. I just wanted to warn you to be careful. Thank you for letting me know, Mrs. Lewis, and I'm sorry if you lost your job because of me. Don't apologize, dear. I did what was right. Just be careful." When she hung up, Helen felt uneasy. Was she being paranoid? Had Marcus really changed, or was he just waiting for the right moment to act? In the following days, she became more attentive. She noticed strange things. A car parked in front of Camilla's building that wasn't usually there. A call disconnected when she answered. A feeling of being watched when she went out with Peter in the pram. She told Camilla, who became worried. They decided to install cameras at the flat entrance, and they began to document everything, every strange interaction, every suspicious coincidence. 2 weeks later, it happened. Helen was alone in the flat with Peter. Camilla had gone to work. The doorbell rang. Helen looked through the peephole and saw a woman she didn't know, young, well-dressed, holding a clipboard. She opened the door with the security chain still on. "Yes?" "Good morning, Mrs. Helen Montgomery. I'm from Social Services. We received an anonymous complaint about possible neglect of a baby at this address. I need to conduct an inspection." Helen's heart raced. "Neglect? That's absurd. My son is perfectly well cared for." "I understand, madam, but I need to verify. It's standard procedure." Helen hesitated but knew she couldn't refuse. She removed the chain and let the woman in. The woman began to look around, asking questions, taking notes. She went to Peter's room, saw the clean crib, the organized clothes, the baby sleeping peacefully. "Everything seems to be in order," the woman said, "but I still need to make a report. Do you live alone?" "I live with my sister and the child's father. We don't live together." "I see. For how long?" "Since the baby was born." The woman wrote everything down. Helen began to feel that something was wrong. She asked to see the woman's identification. She showed a card that looked official, but Helen photographed it with her phone. As soon as the woman left, Helen called Camilla, telling her what had happened. Camilla was suspicious and called Social Services. There was no record of a complaint, no scheduled visit. That woman didn't work there. "Marcus. It was Marcus," Helen said, her voice trembling. "Let's go to the police now." At the police station, they filed a police report. They handed over the photo of the woman. The detectives said they would investigate, but that without concrete proof that Marcus was behind it, it was difficult to do anything. Helen felt despair. He's trying to build a case against me, trying to make me look like a negligent mother to take my son. Camilla hugged her sister. We won't let that happen, but we need help. That's when Camilla thought of Mrs. Eleanor. She called her and told her everything. The older lady was silent for a moment, then said in a firm voice, I'm coming over, and we're going to put an end to this, once and for all. Mrs. Eleanor arrived at Camilla's flat an hour later. She sat with the two sisters and listened intently. Then she picked up her own phone and called Marcus. She activated the speakerphone. Marcus, it's your mother. Mother, it's not a good time. Marcus Alexander Montgomery, you are going to listen to me. I know what you're doing. I know you sent someone to impersonate a social worker to scare Helen. I know you're trying to build a case against her. And this stops now. On the other end of the line, silence. Mother, I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me. I raised you. I know when you're lying. And I'm going to give you two options. First, you stop this immediately, respect the agreement you made with Helen, go to your therapy and learn to be a decent father. Second, I go public. I will tell everyone, the press, your partners, your clients, what you did to your wife. I will expose every detail. You wouldn't do that. I would, without hesitation, because I won't let you destroy more lives. You've already destroyed yours. You've already destroyed Helen's. You will not destroy Peter's. If you do that, you'll destroy the company. You'll destroy my name. Then I think you better choose the first option. Another long silence. Then, Marcus said, his voice low and dangerous, you chose her side, against your own son. I chose the side of what is right, and if one day you have enough discernment, you'll understand that. She hung up. Helen and Camilla were in shock. Mrs. Eleanor, you didn't have to do that, Helen said. The older lady looked at her with firm eyes. Yes, I did, and I'll do more. I'll testify if there's any custody case. I'll tell exactly what I witnessed. The isolation, the control, everything. Marcus will not take this baby from you, not while I'm alive. That night, the three women sat together in Camilla's living room. Peter was in Helen's lap, sleeping peacefully, and for the first time in a long time, Helen felt she was not alone. She had her sister. She had her son's grandmother. She had a support network. And she had herself, stronger than she imagined. Marcus was still a threat, but she was no longer afraid of him, because she had learned something fundamental. Freedom is within, not without, and no one could take that from her again. If you were living in this story, would you believe that Marcus truly changed, or would you think it's just a new form of manipulation? Comment on the video and tell us your opinion. The months that followed were a period of rebuilding. Helen, little by little, learned to trust herself again. Therapy helped her understand that nothing that happened was her fault. That psychological manipulation is subtle precisely because it makes the victim doubt their own perception, that she had been strong, not weak, for surviving. Peter grew up healthy and happy. At 4 months, he was already smiling at everyone, a joyful baby who lit up any room. Helen discovered motherhood with all its joys and challenges. Camilla was a devoted aunt, always present, helping in any way she could, and Mrs. Eleanor became a constant presence, visiting at least 3 times a week, bringing homemade food, helping with the baby, telling family stories. Marcus adhered to the agreement for a few months. He visited Peter on the agreed days, always supervised. He seemed genuinely enchanted with his son. He brought gifts, played with him, took photos. But Helen noticed that something in him hadn't truly changed. He kept trying to control small things. He suggested that a certain outfit would look better on the baby. He questioned Helen's choices about feeding, sleep, and care. Always subtly, always disguised as concern. But it was control. Helen's psychologist helped her establish firm boundaries, and Helen learned to say no, not to justify herself, to simply assert her decisions as a mother without needing Marcus's approval. This irritated him. Gradually, the visits became tense. Marcus arrived more serious, stayed for less time, criticized more. Until one day, 6 months after Peter's birth, he didn't show up at the agreed time. He didn't call to inform them. He simply didn't come. Helen grew worried. She called him. No answer. She called again. Nothing. She tried the house phone. A young female voice answered, saying Mr. Montgomery wasn't there. Helen recognized the voice. It was the woman who had impersonated a social worker months ago. Her heart froze. She hung up and immediately called Camilla, who was at work. "Myla, I think Marcus is planning something." Camilla rushed out of the office and went home. They talked, trying to understand what might be happening. They decided to call Mrs. Eleanor. The older lady answered on the first ring. "Helen, I'm glad you called. I need to talk to you both. Can I come over?" When Mrs. Eleanor arrived, she carried a large envelope. She sat on the sofa and took a deep breath before speaking. "Yesterday, I broke into Marcus's house. Yes, I broke in. I still have a key. He hadn't. I changed the locks. I went in when I knew he wasn't there and searched. I knew he was plotting something, and I found this." She opened the envelope and pulled out several documents. They were reports, photos, notes, all about Helen. There were photos of her leaving with Peter in the pram, entering and leaving the building, going to the market, to the pharmacy. There were detailed notes about her routine. There were even transcriptions of conversations, which could only have been made if her phone or flat had been wiretapped. And there's more. I found a contract with a private detective and a draft of a legal petition requesting full custody of Peter. The arguments are absurd. They claim you are emotionally unstable, that you are alienating the baby from his father, that you are unfit to raise him alone. Helen felt her legs weaken. She sat down before she fell. He was gathering false evidence, building a false narrative to take her son. Camilla was furious. "This is a crime. He can't do this." Mrs. Eleanor nodded. "And that's why I brought everything to you. They are evidence that he is stalking, spying, harassing. You can use this against him." Helen looked at the documents, the photos, the notes. She felt nauseous, but at the same time she felt something stronger. Determination. "We're going to put an end to this, once and for all." The next day, with Mr. Frederick, their lawyer, they filed a restraining order against Marcus. They presented all the evidence, the illegal wiretaps, the photos, the detectives' reports, the threatening messages, the testimonies of Mrs. Lewis, Sophie the nurse, and the hospital doctor who had treated Helen. The judge reviewed the material and granted a temporary restraining order. Marcus could not approach Helen or Peter without a court order, and he opened an inquiry to investigate the illegal activities. Marcus was furious. He tried to call Helen dozens of times. She didn't answer. He tried to go to the flat. The doorman, instructed by the court order, did not let him up. He sent threatening messages, saying he would prove Helen was an unfit mother, that he would take Peter from her, that she would regret it. But Helen did not respond. Each message was documented and handed over to the lawyer as further evidence against him. The hearing was scheduled for a month later. In the meantime, something unexpected happened. The story began to leak. Someone, probably a court employee, told a journalist, and suddenly the story was in the newspapers. Not with full names, but everyone who knew Marcus Alexander Montgomery knew it was about him. Businessman kept wife in psychological isolation during pregnancy. Construction magnate accused of coercive control and stalking. The headlines multiplied. The press discovered that Mrs. Eleanor was his mother and was testifying against her son. This generated even more interest. The story was dramatic, moving, shocking. Helen didn't want exposure, but Camilla saw an opportunity. "If the story is being told anyway, let's make sure it's told correctly. Let's give our version." They agreed to give an interview to a serious, respected television program. Helen, Camilla, and Mrs. Eleanor sat together and told everything, without omitting details: the gradual isolation, the psychological manipulation, the control disguised as care, the stalking after the separation. The reaction was massive. Women across the country began to share their own stories of controlling husbands, of relationships that started like fairy tales and ended in nightmares, of psychological violence that left no visible marks but destroyed from within. Helen became a symbol. She didn't want to be, but she became one, and she decided to use it for something greater. With the support of Camilla and Mrs. Eleanor, she founded an association to help women victims of psychological violence and coercive control, a place where they could seek support, legal guidance, therapy, shelter if needed. The association was called Respite Haven because that's what it offered, a space to breathe, to reconnect with oneself, to find the strength to start over. Mrs. Eleanor donated money to the cause, Camilla helped with the organization and management, and Helen became the voice. The woman who transformed trauma into purpose. On the day of the hearing, the courtroom was full. Journalists, curious onlookers, Helen's supporters. Marcus arrived with his lawyers, his face grim, avoiding glances. He sat on the opposite side, not looking at Helen. The judge first heard Helen's lawyers. They presented all the evidence, the illegal wiretaps, the photos, the detectives' reports, the threatening messages, the testimonies of Mrs. Lewis, Sophie the nurse, and the hospital doctor who had treated Helen. Then it was Marcus's turn to defend himself. His lawyers argued that he was merely concerned about his son's well-being, that he had a right to follow the baby's development, that his actions were misinterpreted. But when Mrs. Eleanor took the witness stand, everything changed. She spoke with clarity, with contained emotion, but with unwavering firmness. She told how she had raised a son who didn't know how to love healthily, how she saw him turn love into possession, how she tried to warn him but was pushed away, how, when she finally understood the gravity of the situation, she chose to side with her daughter-in-law because it was the right thing to do. My son needs help, he needs treatment. He is not well, and until he recognizes this and seeks true change, he should not have custody of a child. Because what he calls love is in fact control. And that will do to Peter what it did to Helen. It will destroy his ability to have healthy relationships. Marcus listened, his jaw tense, his hands clenched into fists. When it was his turn to speak, he stood up and surprised everyone. I love my son. I love Helen. But you're right. I am sick. Not physically, mentally, emotionally. I grew up believing that love was control, that caring was deciding for someone, that protecting was isolating. And when I felt I was losing Helen, I despaired. I did horrible things. I tried to justify it by saying it was to protect, but it was to control. He looked at Helen for the first time. There were tears in his eyes. I hurt you. I imprisoned you, and there's no excuse for that. You deserve to be free. Our son deserves to grow up in a healthy environment. And I need to get treatment before I can be the father he deserves. The judge listened intently, then he delivered his verdict. The restraining order was maintained. Marcus could only see Peter with supervision, and only after proving 6 months of intensive therapy with a specialized psychiatrist. He would have to pay a fine for the illegal wiretaps. And there was the possibility of criminal prosecution if Helen decided to press charges. When they left the courthouse, Helen felt a lightness she hadn't felt in over a year. She was free, truly free. Camilla hugged her tightly. So proud of you, sis. Mrs. Eleanor also hugged them both. You are my family now. That night, in the flat, the 3 women and little Peter had dinner together. They raised a toast to new beginnings, to freedom, to true love, the kind that liberates instead of binds. The months turned into years. Peter grew up in an environment full of love, laughter, and support. Camilla became the favorite aunt, the one who took him on fun outings and taught him crazy things. Mrs. Eleanor was the present grandmother who told stories, baked cakes, and sewed little clothes. Marcus completed his 6 months of therapy. Afterward, he asked permission to see his son. His therapist wrote a letter stating that he had made significant progress, that he was working on his issues, and that he recognized his destructive patterns. Helen hesitated. She talked to her psychologist. She talked to Camilla and Mrs. Eleanor, and she decided to allow it, but with clear boundaries. Short, supervised visits, only in her or Camilla's presence. The first visit was tense. Marcus arrived nervous, his hands trembling as he picked up Peter, who was now 1.5 years old. The boy looked at him with curiosity, not recognizing him. Marcus felt a pang of pain. He had lost so much time. "Hi, Peter, I'm your dad." The boy stared at him seriously, then extended a tiny hand to touch his face. Marcus began to cry. Helen watched from a distance, her heart tight. There was compassion there, but also caution, because she had learned that people could change, but they could also relapse, and her duty was to protect her son above all else. The visits continued. Gradually, Marcus showed true change. He didn't try to control. He didn't question Helen's decisions. He simply enjoyed his time with his son. He played, told stories, laughed. He seemed more human, lighter. One day, 2 years after the hearing, Marcus asked to talk to Helen. She agreed, but asked Camilla to stay in the room as well. He sat down and began. "I know I can never undo what I did. I know I hurt you in ways I can't even fully comprehend. But I want you to know that your courage saved me. When you left that house, when you faced all of this publicly, when you refused to be silenced, you didn't just save yourself. You saved me too. You forced me to look at myself, to see the monster I was becoming." He paused, swallowing hard. "I'm still in therapy today. I'll probably continue for the rest of my life, because I understood that I am a person who needs constant help not to fall back into destructive patterns, and I want Peter to grow up seeing a father who recognizes his flaws and works on them, not a perfect father, an honest father." Helen nodded. "Thank you for saying that, Marcus, and thank you for truly changing, because I know it's not easy. There's something else. I want to help. With the association, I want to donate money. I want to offer whatever is needed, not to clear my conscience, but because I believe in the work you are doing, and because I want other women not to go through what you went through." Helen was surprised. He was being sincere. She could feel it. "I accept, but with one condition. You never show up there. You never talk to the women. You only help financially, because your presence would be a trigger for many of them." "I understand, and I agree." The Respite Haven Association grew. It became a national reference. Helen gave lectures, participated in debates, helped draft laws to protect victims of psychological violence. Her story inspired thousands of women to leave abusive relationships, to recognize the signs, to seek help. Peter grew up healthy, happy, surrounded by love. When he was 5, he asked his mother why he didn't live with his father like other children. Helen sat with him and explained, with simple but honest words, "Your father and I loved each other, but sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes people need to grow on their own before they can be together. Your father is growing, and one day when you're older you'll understand everything, but know that you are loved, by me, by Aunt Mila, by Grandma Eleanor, and by your father too." Peter nodded, satisfied with the answer, and asked if he could play in the park. Helen smiled. "Of course." One Sunday afternoon, 3 years after everything had begun, Helen was sitting on the sofa in the flat, watching Peter play with building blocks on the rug. Camilla was in the kitchen preparing lunch. Mrs. Eleanor would arrive soon to have lunch with them, as she did every Sunday. Helen looked around and felt gratitude. Gratitude for having escaped, gratitude for having found strength she didn't even know she had. Gratitude for the family she had built, not necessarily of blood, but of choice and true love. Her phone vibrated. It was a message from one of the women at the association. It simply said, "Thank you for existing. You saved me." Helen smiled, her eyes welling up, and she thought that maybe, just maybe, all that suffering had a purpose. To transform pain into strength, to transform trauma into action, to transform silence into voice. She looked out the window. Outside, London pulsed with its chaotic energy. Cars, people, buildings, life happening, at a frantic pace. But inside, in that flat in Islington, there was peace, there was laughter, there was freedom. And Helen finally understood what it meant to be home. It wasn't a place. It was a state of mind. It was the ability to be yourself without fear, to love without losing yourself, to live without being bound. Peter dropped the blocks and ran to her, climbing onto the sofa and snuggling into her lap. "Mommy, I love you." She hugged her son, smelling his baby soap scent, his soft hair, his little heart beating against hers. "I love you too, my love, more than anything in this world." And in that moment, Helen knew she had won, not because she destroyed Marcus or because she got revenge, but because she had reclaimed herself, and that was the greatest victory of all. The doorbell rang. It was Mrs. Eleanor arriving with a still warm apple pie. Camilla opened the door and greeted her with a hug. The three women gathered in the living room, with Peter playing among them, and laughed at silly stories, made plans for the week, lived that simple moment as the treasure it was. Because in the end, that's what life is made of simple moments, of true love, of freedom conquered, of voices that refuse to remain silent, and Helen would never be silent again. She had a story to tell, and that story was saving lives, one at a time. End of story. Dear listeners, we hope that the story of Helen, Marcus, and Peter has touched your heart. If you were moved, if you recognized yourself in any character, if you learned something about the signs of an abusive relationship, please like, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments what most resonated with you on this journey. Do you know someone who went through a similar situation? How would you act if you were in Helen's or Camilla's shoes? Every day, we bring intense stories like this, which reveal the deepest side of the human soul, speaking of overcoming true love and the incredible strength that resides within each of us. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. Sometimes a story can be the first step to freedom. We await you in the next episode with another exciting journey that will make you reflect on what truly matters in life. Until then, remember, you are stronger than you imagine and you are never alone on this journey.